Okay, let's talk about the Pre-Messianic Era. So this, to me, is like really interesting. And that's because, based upon the prophecies of our prophets and others, we shall see a number of preconditions and precursors for the Messiah to come. So now we're talking about the Pre-Messianic Era. Pre-Messianic means before Mashiach comes. Before the Messiah reveals himself, the world is going to be a certain way. It's going to be that way to let the land become fertile for the redemption. Okay? So the Messianic era does not begin once Mashiach comes. The actual Mashiach, the actual King Mashiach, is going to be a person who's going to jump onto a already laid stage. Some of it he created himself, but a lot of it, history itself, meaning God, has created before him. Okay? Let me give you some fascinating examples to some of these political precursors to Mashiach coming. The first one is actually King David himself, right? The great-great-great-grandfather of the ultimate Mashiach. He says in Tehillim, which, how many chapters in Tehillim? What? Very good, 150 is correct. Who wrote Tehillim? Oh, trick question. He wrote many of them, but he edited the rest. They were written by a number of individuals. Avraham Avinu wrote some, Korach's son wrote some, Adam Arishon wrote some according to our tradition. Right? He edited them. He wrote a number himself, but he edited all of them. In there, we're dealing with words of prophecy, obviously. The Nevuah. David was a Navi, was a prophet. And it says the following. Check this out. Bon Yerushalayim Hashem, Nidchei Yisrael Yechanes. The builder of Jerusalem is God. This is chapter 147, verse 2. The outcast of Israel shall be gathered in. Now, we say these words, we just read through it. No, we put on the reading button and off we go. Build Jerusalem is God and he's going to gather in. Say the commentators, actually, these are two connective comments that has a tissue that connects them. And that is the following. The Pre-Messianic era, says King David, you're going to see certain things happen. Number one, Jerusalem is going to be rebuilt. Look at the order. Bonei Yerushalayim, Hashem, when God builds up Jerusalem, Nidchei Yisrael Lechanes, you're going to see Jews come in. We're going to see Mashiach come. When you see that it's very difficult to buy a house, an apartment, a piece of land in Jerusalem, because it's so full and so built up. Like every Jewish magazine you open, right? Every time you go to Yerushalayim, Baruch Hashem, there's another apartment building, right? More French have arrived, sold their house on the Champs-Elysees, and bought another building in Jerusalem, another apartment, and like, how about us? Right? They're like, au revoir. Right? Baruch Hashem, it's a wonderful thing. This, says King David, is a sign Mashiach is coming. Why? We can discuss. But that's one of the simons. Says Metzuas David, who habona ted Yerushalayim. God is the builder that King David is speaking about. He's going to build up Yerushalayim. It's going to be built up physically with people and buildings and stores and shops. And people are going to go through it. And there'll be thousands of people going in and millions going to the Kotel. When you see that happening, the redemption is at hand. See what it says over here? Right? This wasn't written in the past 50, 60 years. It was written 2,000 years ago, my friend. More, I'm sorry. Right? Now it's going to be built up. Now we have a whole infrastructure that's building up in Jerusalem. You Jews can return. Oh, returning of Jews. Hello. The Messiah is imminent. It is a precursor. And you can't miss it. I mean, every time you go to Yerushalayim, literally it's like, by the way, don't think it was always like this, right? And I think, oh, it was always like that. 100 years ago, they couldn't get Jews to live in Jerusalem. Right? I mean, Montefiore was like spending millions of dollars just to get Jews to come in. Or pounds, actually, he was British. Right? He was spending a lot of money just to get Jews to move in. Like, move there, it's dangerous, it's difficult. We have no parnasa, they were starving there. Now, hello, better get a flight for less than $2,000. Right? That's number one. Number two, Number two, the Gemara talks about, based upon a prophecy from Ezekiel the prophet. These are all precursors, yeah? So the Gemara says that we have a blessing. Let's look at the side. This is Gemara Megillah. Umara'o, what do they see? Lomar, b'kibbutz Gala, the return of the Jewish people. Lachar, b'chad Shalom. If you look at the Shemona Esrei, because we know in the Shemona Esrei we pray for Mashiach coming, right? Et Semech David. We ask God to bring Mashiach in the Shemona Esrei. You remember that, right? You should, because it's going to be in your final. There you go. Don't worry, someone will still miss it out. I just said it's still going to miss it, don't worry. And you'll notice that blessing comes after another blessing. What blessing does the request for the Mashiach to come occur in? Sorry, can't hear. What blessing do we see us asking for God come after? The blessing for? It comes right after the blessing for Parnasah, for the fruits of Israel. Right? After we ask Kadosh Baruch Hu to bring us Birchat Hashanim, blessing of the year, we stop over there. We finish the blessing for Parnasah, and then we're like, for wealth and success in the land of Israel, right? We should have crops the entire year. And then we say, Hashem bring us Mashiach. The juxtaposition, says the Gemara, between these two blessings is not coincidental. They are connected. And what is the connection between these two things? Based upon the prophecy of Ezekiel the prophet, says Ezekiel the prophet, Dichtiv Atem Har Yisrael, you mountains of Israel, Anfeichem Titnu Brichem, your branches are going to bring forth fruit. Tsul Am Yisrael Ki Karvelo, because he is close to coming. So the prophet Ezekiel, chapter 36, verse 8 says, bring forth your wonderful fruits, bring forth your delicious vegetables, your apple trees and your fruit trees. Because, says Ezekiel the prophet, when you do that, you know Mashiach is close. When you see a blossoming in the land of Israel, this is all of Israel. Now we've left Jerusalem, right? Mashiach is close. It's a sign, says Ezekiel. It's a sign Mashiach is close. That's why it says Rashi, Alma, on this piece of Talmud, Kibbutz Goliot be'ed Birchat Hashanim hi. You'll know that Mashiach comes when you see the land is full and blossoming. Would anyone like to take a guess of the connection? The first one, it's pretty obvious, right? We build it up so that we have an infrastructure. But what has fruits, trees, got to do with the preparation for Mashiach? Okay, 100 years ago, right, the land of Israel, you see Mark Twain in Innocents Abroad. He talks about the land of Israel, and he liked Israel, by the way. He wasn't talking, badly about it. He said it was like a dust bowl, right? It was like, there was nothing. I traveled for miles, he said. There were no trees anywhere, no bushes, right? Maybe a few cactus, right? A couple of sorrow, and that's it. And now, right, you can't move for oranges, right? Oh, oranges. It wasn't always like this. For 2,000 years, there was nothing. And Ezekiel the prophet is saying, when you see the return of agricultural produce returning in Israel, Mashiach is close. Why? What have the two got to do? It's very nice. Right? Very nice. We can actually grow our own fruit. Right? But what's that got to do with coming of Mashiach? Yeah.
Maybe because we could only bring Bikurim and there's a piece in the flesh.
Nice answer. I never thought of that. Maybe we're going to see the various mitzvot we can do using fruits and vegetables. You need fruits and vegetables. I like that. Write that down. I never thought of that before. That's preparation for the temple being built. Very good. Yeah.
Bracha in Eretz Yisrael only comes when the Yidden are there.
So blessing comes. So you're saying it's just a consequence. When the Jews are in Israel, the land is blessed. Right? We become blessed, and the land gives off its produce if we're behaving. Right? When the temple is destroyed and we're not, we get cleared out. But there is a connection between the indigenous population of Israel, the Jewish people, and the blossoming of the land of Israel. No matter what they tell you on CNN, with the indigenous people in the land of Israel. Let's be clear on that, right? It's us. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So you're just saying it just happens to be. Jews live there. We do what we're meant to do. Hashem told us in the Torah that the land's going to give its fruit. And if we don't, the land doesn't, and we get kicked out. Any more practical reasons, you think? Everyone's very deep over here. Give me a practical answer to this. Okay, imagine it's 1948. And you come to Israel. What was Israel like in 1948? Was there like falafel stands? It was like not much going on. It wasn't easy. There were swamps. Tel Aviv was one big swamp. You know? Right? It was like very, very difficult. I know my grandparents were there. You know, my mother was born at that time. Right? And it wasn't easy. It was not like, hey, let's go for a shawarma, right? A falafel with my friends. Right? It was still Israel, but it wasn't as it is today. So now I'm working the fields, and I'm trying to build up. I'm trying to get like, well, I need some shade, don't I? I need to eat something. So the commentators say that Hashem does us a favor. He actually allows the fruit to come out because we've got to eat something. We've got to drink something, and we've got to shade ourselves during a very difficult time. So the trees coming up are actually there as a handy source of food and drink. Okay, now we export it all. We've got so much, thank God, you know. But you actually need it in Israel too. We have a lot of this wonderful produce, and the land blossoms to give us something to eat because we're creating a land. Right? You need natural products. See? And when you're surrounded by enemies that don't want to give you anything, you've got to grow it yourself. That's another answer. A third answer. Anybody want to try another answer? I have one more. I'm sure there's many more. I have one more answer, which we're seeing very clear in our generation. Dina!
I don't know if this is an answer to what you're asking, but
You probably have the answer then. When someone says
people wouldn't want to move to a place that isn't fertile and that there's no...
Okay, so very, very good. Very good.
People like to move to a place that they could...
It makes it attractive. They want to be in a successful country. Makes it attractive. Built up, blossoming, a lot of natural resources. It's going to attract people. Very good. That's a very valid answer. It attracts people. They go, yeah, right? Most Jews are not immigrating to Kabul, right? It's just not so good. Iraq right now. You go where things are beautiful and there's blossoming and there's stuff to do.
And also, when they're not like working so hard on, growing the land, when it's basically doing it on its own, they can focus on doing other things.
Very nice. Also good answer. How are you writing this down? This is gold. Very nice. Right? When the land, we're not like constantly like in the fields, we can actually build up a society, build an infrastructure. We're not just worrying where my next meal is going to come from, as they did in Israel for a long, long time. Right? 1900s in Israel, people were starving on the streets. There's one other answer there. It's more to do with the non-Jewish nations, this answer actually, to give you a little clue. The non-Jewish nations. And the Jewish people as well. I already gave a hint of this already. And the commentators bring this down. I'll show you inside a little bit later. Check this answer out. When they see what a small bunch of Holocaust survivors and people who were kicked out of their Muslim countries too, as they were in 1948, forced to leave without nothing, and they turn up in this little land, right, which has got no natural resources, right, there's no oil to start digging out and start selling yet, right, there's no oranges, nothing, and everyone's just starving, and everyone's like clearing out swamps. And they see how much the land has changed and what we Jews have created in the land of Israel, which no one can deny. I mean, they can say we're disgusting, we're rats, we're vermin, we're occupied, they can all the terrible things in the world, but they can't not be impressed. And we get to the point where we make Israel, in such a short amount of time, the primary exporter of some of those amazing fruit in the entire world. We've got enough for ourselves, now we're selling it abroad for 10 times the price. And they see how we created a whole startup nation of companies. This is my extension of the original Chazal. What are they going to be like? Wow. Something is happening in Israel, something very big, and we're living in epic times. It's miraculous. It's miraculous. It's just unbelievable. I can't, and like, you managed to turn this dust bowl into fertile soil, and the whole Negev is one big desert, and all the other countries can't, all they take out of the ground is oil, and you guys are making produce come out of it, and you've created irrigation systems. Do you now start to export it to Africa, to starving countries for free, so they can learn how to do it? These other nations who've been around much longer in their countries haven't figured out, and we're giving this. Wow, it's messianic. It's a sign. This is a miraculous sign. It's a simon that something amazing is happening. That's what Chazal saying. When they see all these trees, people wrote these things, by the way, when there weren't any trees in Israel, right? 100, 200 years ago. And they're like, when they see this happening, they're going to realize that something important is happening in Israel. And this is fertile soil for the coming of the Messiah. Okay? It's fertile soil. So, one is Jerusalem, two is blossoming of Israel, and three, just the miraculous nature of it all happening. That is the simon, the Mashiach is coming. Okay? Let us do the third, because 2 and 3 are obviously connected. And this one is based upon a Balaturim, but others speak about it as well. And it's who the Jewish people are going to be subjugated by before Mashiach comes. So we learnt up to now there are 4 exiles. The first exile is Babylon, Babel. The second one was Madai or Paras. The third exile was Yavan, Greece. The fourth exile was Edom, Rome. There is an opinion brought down. There's a 5th exile, which is the shortest, but the most challenging. It's going to happen at the end of days. And that is the exile of Adam. Exile of Adam. Who precisely is Adam? Who is described as an Adam in the Torah? I'll give you a little clue. He's referred to as a Pera Adam, Ishmael. Okay? The other 4 were connected and compared to animals. Remember the prophecy of Daniel? There were animals. This one is an Adam, but he's Pera. It's unbridled. They have Mesiras Nefesh, right? But they go the whole way. You know, there's no blockage. It's just all way, right? Constantly praying. They have modesty, but they go all the way. They're like, so it's unbridled, but it's still Adam, and they have merit for it. And their descendants, the Arab nations, that have control over parts of Israel to this very day. He says, when you see that happening, that's Messiah Mashiach is coming. Let's look inside. Let's see where he bases this from. It's actually based upon a verse in the Torah, because the Torah says in Bereshis, Chaf Hei, Yud Ches, Al Pnei Kol Echav Nafal, upon the descendants of Yishmael, the Arab nations, are going to fall before all his brothers. Ve'ele Toldot Yitzchak. And the next verse says, and these are the generations of Yitzchak. Says the Balaturim, these 2 verses are put next to each other for a reason. They're telling something unbelievable. Al Pnei Kol Echav Nafal, V'samech Lei Ve'ele Toldot Yitzchak. He's going to fall, they're going to fall, and then we, the generation of Yitzchak, Lomar, K'shiyipol Yishmael B'char Yom Ha'Gud, that when Yishmael eventually falls at the end of days, as Yitzmach ben David, you're going to see the tzmicha, the redemption, the flourishing, the blossoming of ben David and Mashiach. Who's from Toldot Yitzchak. So he's making a connection over here, an unbelievable one, and that is when you see the Jewish people are struggling from the Bnei Ishmael, and when you see them eventually get an upper hand and are not suffering because of it, which is a question where we are right now, you know the end is close. You know the end is close. That's the connection. The Pesukim, they go down, we get a chance to come up. That is Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. In what merit do they have to be the ones to do this in the last generation? And what merit do they have? And these aren't my words. These are the words of Chaim Vital on his commentary, Esadas on Tehillim. And he says something unbelievable. He says that these nations that we're dealing with, they're not bad people. They have great merit. They circumcise. Okay, they're not commanded to do it, and they do it at a very difficult age, but they do it. They have modesty and they pray. It's not a coincidence that they have so much control. They get merit for that. And we know that circumcision actually is connected to the land of Israel. Before Avraham Avinu go to Israel, he had to have a Brit Milah, circumcision. before the Jewish people went to Israel, they had to have a Brit Milah, Yeshua, when they went in. Okay? The two are connected. Why that particular mitzvah is your passport into Eretz Yisrael? There's no discussion. It's actually not the Brit Milah. It's what you do with that part of your body, right? Living moral lifestyles that gives you the merit of the land of Israel. Anyway, they get merit for that. That means right before Mashiach comes, they're going to hold on to key sites within the Jewish world. And it's going to be a challenge to wrestle those away from them. But at the end of days, they're going to give up and they're going to like, no problem. We're with you, take it, and we're part of it. So when you see Yishmael fall, and we take control over Israel, although this is not politically correct, it's absolutely correct, it's not PC, it's AC, that, says the Baal HaTurim, is a sign Mashiach is very, very close. That does not have to happen in a bad way. It could be they're like, it's your land, take it. We haven't reached that point yet, but I think we're very, very close. We looked at a number of clear precursors from Chazal. We'll see a couple more next class. We said when you see Jerusalem's rebuilt, says King David, it's a sign Mashiach is coming. The end is near. Why? You need an infrastructure. The temple can't be built nowhere. There have to be people living there. The place is ready to go. Apartments ready to go. We see blossoming in Israel. Why? First of all, they need something to eat. Right? We need to have produce there. We need to have a social, an infrastructure of food and produce and business in order to get there and everything else that comes from that. It's miraculous. Right? This is miraculous, but so is this. When you see miracles happening again, right, of this caliber at least, that's wow. That's a sign, you know. And finally, there's no coincidence as who has control of the land of Israel now, and who is meant to have control of Israel right before Mashiach comes. We're going to stop over there. We'll pick this up next class, God willing.